From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Hey, we had an election here in Wisconsin this week, and I'd like to report to the rest of the nation that we are now 4 for 4 on statewide elections. The last 4 have all gone to the Democrat. The big election this week was the spring primary, and the marquee race was for superintendent of public instruction, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan position. Okay, fine. But it was clear to everyone that Jill Underly was the so-called Democrat on the ticket. She had the endorsement of all major Democrats in the state, and her opponent had all the Republican endorsements, including former Governor Scott Walker. And I'm happy to report Jill Underly wins 58% to 42%. Not even close. Not even close. So, very happy to report that. Just thought you'd like to know. It's always good to look at these local elections and primaries around all 50 states and see what tea leaves we can read. Nothing really complicated about this. So as we look ahead to the midterms, they're never far away, are they? They're always right around the corner. It's going to be huge, these midterms, my God. Of course, we got a 50-50 split in the Senate. We're still up in the air on whether any anti-gerrymandering initiatives are going to take hold, if they're going to happen at all, and in which states. So there's a lot going on here as we look forward to the midterms. Razor-thin Democratic majority in the House of Representatives as well. Just no room for error. And you're going to hear over and over again, we already have, that in the first term of a new president, if history is a guide, that president's party will lose seats in both the House and the Senate. There have been 1 or 2 exceptions to that over the years, but that's the general rule. Hoping very much that that's not the case here. We talked at length yesterday about this weird realignment that seems to be happening. And boy, I'm always afraid to be too optimistic. But the Republicans generally definitely ebbing, while Democrats seem to be enjoying the high tide right now. Of course, the biggest story of 2021, the Georgia election, found 2 Democratic senators win their races. So, yeah, maybe this realignment that you and I talked about yesterday, can we be so bold as to hope that this might actually become a reality? That the Republican Party, the right-wingers, the crazies actually do fall off the map? They're no longer part of the acceptable political spectrum, so that entire spectrum realigns, leaving room for an actual left in this country. How great would that be? So anyway, I just thought I'd report good news from Wisconsin. How are things in your state? Well, the big news of the week nationally, if you're paying attention, was once again the Senate parliamentarian, who we've now mentioned a few times in the last couple months. I first mentioned her in the context of the impeachment trial of the Senate because she was right there to tell Patrick Leahy what to say and what to do, because he was presiding and had no idea what was going on. So she pretty much ran the show. She was just up in his ear every minute telling him what to do, and I was very impressed by that. She did a good job. Elizabeth McDonough is her name. Then she made the news more prominently when she decided that the $15 an hour minimum wage could not be considered a so-called budget-related item for inclusion in the reconciliation process. So that was thrown out of the COVID relief bill. So she made a lot of enemies there. We talked at length about that. Well, now Elizabeth McDonough, Senate parliamentarian, now she's got the Democrats singing her praises because she has made the parliamentary ruling the Democrats can indeed use that fast-track budget reconciliation process for a second time this fiscal year. Normally, you can use it once per fiscal year, and they've used it. But as was predicted by many pundits over the last couple months, and I'm not equipped to explain this in detail because I don't quite understand it myself, but the fiscal year ends on September 30th, so the Democrats have one more crack at using the reconciliation process, which means they don't have to get that 60-vote cloture vote to end debate, which means they can pass legislation with just 51 votes, 50 Democrats plus Kamala Harris. So now they just have to decide how to use it, and everyone is assuming they'll have to use it for the infrastructure bill. So whoop-de-doo. This is big news. This is huge. This is not just sort of interesting inside baseball. This is legitimately huge news. Don't have to get 10 Republican votes because, Mitch McConnell has already announced that they are going to be 100% opposed. He's promising 0 votes. And that's just sort of where we are now. I can't imagine the Republicans, as they currently stand, ever again voting for any Democratic initiative. If Joe Biden has an opportunity here in this Congress to nominate a Supreme Court justice, it's hard to imagine a single Republican vote. They are just in lockstep. And yeah, there's Mitt Romney and there's Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And they've blown up the filibuster for judicial nominees. So I guess maybe Joe could get a Supreme Court nominee through. But straight legislation? No. It's just like Obama. McConnell and the Republicans have vowed to be 100% obstructionist. They've come right out and said so regarding infrastructure. So this is great. This is very good. And then, according to what I've been hearing, they might get 2 more cracks at this in the next fiscal year. Again, I don't know enough to explain this to you. There are good people out there who can explain this to you. But we get 2 bites at the apple this time around. The first was used for COVID. Second will be used for infrastructure. And it looks like they're going to get 2 more bites at the apple in the next fiscal year after September 30th. And without being able to count on majorities after the midterms, you better take full advantage of every opportunity. So this is big news. This is exciting. It cannot be understated. It's kind of a big deal. While we're talking politics and good news, I'm happy to report that Nina Turner is getting it done in her race for the Ohio House seat. She's polling well. Her fundraising is through the roof. She's killing it. Nina Turner, a true progressive. Former Ohio State Senator, 2020 Bernie Sanders presidential campaign co-chair. She's running for Ohio's 11th congressional district, and she is getting it done. I can't help but I always feel like I need to kind of pull myself back from this enthusiasm. But we got to be feeling good. Progressives are winning the day. It's a small battle here and a small battle there, but every little win counts. And as much as I'd like to have a full anarchist socialist revolution tomorrow, I know that's not going to happen. So I'm going to be pleased with steps in the right direction. And if we can just break this cycle of 1 or 2 steps forward, then 2 or 3 steps back, if we can break that cycle and keep the momentum going forward, including the 22 midterms, where the progressives make gains instead of losses. It feels like too much to hope for, but there's a wave right now that the left is riding. It's a very long way to go, but it just feels so great to be going at least in the right direction. Yes, we have to pick up the pace. Yes, we have a long way to go, but at least we're not going backwards. It feels good. It just feels good. It's fun to be excited about things. I saw a map. You may have seen it. Everybody was sharing it. This map of the proposed Amtrak additions and improvements. Oh, it's a beautiful map. Rolling around America on a big old train. I love the idea of that. From here in Milwaukee, I can do a little quick hop down to Chicago and then go to just literally anywhere in the country. It's fantastic. And if the infrastructure bill passes and if these proposed additions are achieved here in the next few years, I can ride on up to Green Bay. I can ride over to Madison. I can go up to Eau Claire. I can even go to Duluth, right at the tip of Lake Superior. I'm looking at the map right now. I love Duluth. If you've never been to Duluth, Minnesota, beautiful little spot. Lake Superior, oh my goodness. Breathtaking. Awe-inspiring Lake Superior. I highly recommend it. Yep, every state in the Union except South Dakota, which Governor Kristi Noem took note of and was pretty upset. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, the Amtrak system would go to every state in the Union, well, in the lower 48 at least, except South Dakota. Sorry. Maybe that'll be in the next phase. And it's funny because the kind of things we're asking for, you know the list: Medicare for all, student debt forgiveness, universal pre-K, high-speed rail, all these just really basic things that every civilized nation in the world already has. They've had it for decades. The anticipation that we might finally get it is just, it's got people giddy, myself included. I can't help it. It's the kind of thing, you know, Medicare for all is right at the top of the list. The kind of thing that once you get, you wonder, how did we ever not have this? It's analogous to the whole relationship between money and happiness, which you and I have talked about, and it's common knowledge by now, at least I hope it is, that money absolutely does indeed buy happiness. If you don't have the money to meet your basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, safety, health care, take care of your kids, if you don't have enough money to do those things, you are unhappy. If you get that money, you are happier. Yeah. If you have the money to pay for those things, yes, it makes you happy. Money absolutely buys happiness. But then once you reach a certain threshold where you have everything you need and maybe a few extras, you get to take a vacation occasionally. If you reach a certain point, then money doesn't buy happiness after that. It can't. Once you got everything you need and maybe a couple little extras and you're living okay. And I hesitate to put a number on that because it changes every year and it changes for individual people and depending on where you're living. But say it's, I don't know, up to 60 or 70,000 a year, just to pull a number out of the air. Okay, you can meet your needs. Everything's cool. And the happiness gained is immeasurable. But then you go from 70,000 to 170,000, and there's really not much difference in happiness, if any at all. And then you go from there up to 700,000 or 700 million, and there's absolutely no relationship at all. There's no increased happiness with increased income once you have what you need. So I'm thinking that way because we're in the position now of not having the basics. We don't have universal pre-K. We don't have a livable wage for a lot of people. We don't have universal health care. So yeah, getting these things as a nation, our happiness quota is going to skyrocket. It's fun. It's fun to think about these things. Lord mercy, I hope I'm not setting myself up for a big fall here, but I can't help it. Feels good. Well, what other good news can we share? As long as we seem to have stumbled onto a pattern here. You and I haven't talked about the Matt Gaetz accusations, but that's also a pretty fun story to see somebody like that go down so hard. I'm typically not the guy who takes glee in other people's pain, but there are certainly exceptions to that rule, and Matt Gaetz absolutely qualifies as an exception to that rule. He is such a bad guy in so many ways. To see him take a very hard fall, I got to confess that I take great pleasure in that. You know, of all the allegations, and they're really horrible, sex with underage girls, sex trafficking, of all the many allegations that are really disturbing. The one that I think I'm most interested in and want to know more about is this practice of his where right on the House floor, sharing nude photos with colleagues, bragging about his conquests and showing the photos. Now, what I want to know is who are these guys that he's sharing the photos with? And how in the hell did they feel it was okay to participate in this activity and not put an end to it then and there? And now that the stories are coming out, how about coming forward saying, yeah, I was one of the people he shared these photos with, and I was disgusted, and I'm sorry I didn't speak out sooner. Or the fact that they're not coming out means they think that's not a solution for them. So for all you Justice Department investigators and for all of you investigative journalists, first of all, thank you. Kudos to you for getting on this guy. But could you please find out who these other lawmakers are? Going back to his time in the Florida legislature, when he had this sort of game going with other young male lawmakers where they scored their sexual conquests. So there's two different things here. That was when he was a state legislator. But as a U.S. congressperson, he was sharing photos and bragging to fellow lawmakers. I want to know who these guys are. And if this whole Gates gate is just one more piece of the puzzle, it's just part of the collapse of the Republican Party overall, one more nail in their coffin, one more example of them just going off the cliff, and to return to yesterday's conversation, then a realignment of the American political spectrum, where the far right is in the history books and the spectrum itself is now more reasonable, and we have room for an actual left, which heretofore hasn't existed, but might over time actually become a thing. We get Nina Turner elected from Ohio. That's a pretty good start on an actual left. How great would that be? So if the Gates thing can serve this purpose, if Mitch McConnell's outrageous hypocrisy regarding corporate CEOs and their political activity, the rapid response to the voter suppression laws passed in Georgia and proposed in Texas and other states, if that rapid response and rejection can be part of this process of realignment, of finally purging the unacceptable far right, I'm getting too excited. Could it be? Could it be? Okay. Well, I'm just looking for stories here in my notes that make me laugh now. And here's another, oh, Lord. Do you know Greg Gutfeld? I know, it's a weird name, right? Greg Gutfeld is a personality on Fox News. And he fancies himself a comedian. He thinks he's funny. Now, I've followed this guy off and on over the years because he first came to my attention when he had a show called Red Eye, or The Red Eye, which was a late night kind of weekend show where he was attempting to do conservative humor. And I just had to check this thing out because I knew it would be bad. For some reason, we could go into this in depth, I don't know. Conservatives don't have a sense of humor. The two things just don't go together. The closest they came was Dennis Miller, who was funny before he converted to conservatism. So he was able to bring some of that funny along with him. But even then, when he became conservative, he became much less funny. So anyway, I'm not sure what Gutfeld is trying to achieve here, but he's horrible. Well, he's in the news this week because his show just premiered. He had a show, and it was a weekly show on the weekends, kind of a late night thing like Red Eye. He's been trying this for years to no success. Well, he had so much lack of success, that in their great wisdom, Fox decided to put him on every night at 10 o'clock. The great spot, right, to compete with The Daily Show and other late-night comics. He's got an hour to fill every single night, and it is absolutely the definition of cringeworthy. It is so completely unfunny, and it's not just because I'm a lefty. I swear to God, if he was funny, I would admit it. But it's just mean and stupid. And there's been a ton of reaction from people in the comedy world, from writers and producers and comics, and they are brutal. One tweet I'm looking at here, "It's unbelievable how unfunny this is. I can't turn away." Yeah, that's how I felt, because I checked in. Of course I did. Are you kidding? I had to take a look at this thing. He just sits around the set with 4 cohorts, and everybody joins in the fun. Kaylee McElhaney was there the night I watched. This comic/wrestler mania guy, I forget his name, was there to chime in. And other Fox personalities just sort of stop in and pay a visit. Hannity, I think, did a turn on the panel, or at least via Zoom. So if you like the "it's so bad it's good" genre, check out Gutfeld. Yeah, it's in the "it's so bad it's good" category. You won't be able to watch it too long, probably. For a while, you'll watch it like it's a car wreck, in disbelief. And at some point, you're just going to have to reach for the remote and say, okay, I get it. But yeah, why is it that conservative people can't be funny? Psychologists have done a lot of studies about personality types and cognitive profiles of people who are either liberal or conservative. But a sense of humor in the conservative brain, there just doesn't seem to be room in there for both. I have yet to find any conservative who's funny. Not because of my political view, because of my comedy nerddom. I know what's funny and I know what's not. Have you ever... Here's another bit of self-torture you can do. Have you ever spent any time on the comment thread of Fox News? Or really any conservative? I'll often, not often, but I have more than once checked on the thread, and it's frightening. And it gets especially frightening when people are trying to be funny. They're broken. This is, I can't stress enough, this is not my personal take. It's not my personal belief. This is just objectively, unquestionably rancid behavior. I will occasionally, if I see something especially offensive, some comment, I'll click on that person's profile just to take a look. And I'll see the kinds of memes they're sharing, the kind of jokes they think are funny, the kind of comments in their threads. And it's really, really disturbing. Some people's brains just work differently. And I'll go back to a theory that I've shared with you many times. I honestly believe, and I think I could find the science to back me up, that the brain that is not curious, the brain of a person who doesn't travel, get out of their bubble, meet new people, have some curiosity to read about other places, other people, that brain is quite literally damaged. It's atrophied. And if they did get out of their bubble, if they did take the effort to read, to travel, to expand their horizons, they could fix their damaged brains. The minute you got somebody who just sticks in the town they grew up in, they say stupid things like, well, I don't know art, but I know what I like, defending their own ignorance, attacking the liberal elites in these fancy universities. There's such a very strong link between a good sense of humor and a liberal spirit, an intellectual curiosity. No, you don't have to go to Harvard. You don't have to spend every free waking hour devouring the great books. No, you just have to make it part of your life. You can't just reject it entirely. Go ahead, go to the Fox News site and just scroll through the comments for a while. If you've never done that, I guarantee you, you will be shocked. And then, just for your own elucidation, find an especially heinous little comment and then click on that person and look at their profile, look at their feed. And again, if you haven't done this before, you will be shocked. I don't recommend spending the whole afternoon doing this. You wouldn't be able to even if you tried. It's too disturbing. But it's out there, and it's real, and there ain't no humor, especially when they're trying to be funny. Usually it's just devoid of humor, but when they try to be funny, then it gets even worse. And it just gets disgusting. And all you can do is cringe. So, Gutfeld, exclamation point. Weeknights, 11:10 Central on your Fox News station. And this all kind of fits in with my theme today. As disturbing as it is, it's also kind of really satisfying to watch these people fail in such a colossal fashion. I mean, hard, face-planting failure. I really believe, God help me for being so optimistic. I really do believe we're witnessing the final stage of this very hard fall of the extreme right. And I couldn't possibly take more pleasure in it. You've heard the expression late-stage capitalism? That's the concept that the system of capitalism is inevitably collapsing from within and really just doesn't have a chance of survival. And in this last stage, there's going to be some pain because those trying to cling to it will be desperate and will go to great lengths to defend and preserve their failed system. I see this right-wing fail as very much akin to that concept of late-stage capitalism. This is late-stage right-wingery. And the QAnon folks and Matt Gaetz and Mitch McConnell and wannabe comic Greg Gutfeld are some of the players here who, in their desperate attempt to uphold a failed system, are becoming more and more outrageous. And their slapstick pratfalls, their faceplants, God forgive me for saying it, they're just filling me with glee these days. Just watching them fail. Could it be? Could it be? I don't know if I'm hoping for too much. I don't know if I'm setting myself up for my own fall here. But just for the moment, for today, let me have this. I'm going to leave you here with nothing but hope and optimism that the bad guys are losing. And they're doing it comically right before our eyes. So what the hell? Let's enjoy it. I don't know. I love you. I do. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm Charles Purcell.